Hello and welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. Bit of a different one today. We're actually going to take on 2 weeks. This one running a bit late. We're going to be doing the week 5 preview players show, although you might have seen my post already, and I did a bit of a write-up that was available on Twitter and Instagram for those of you to see, or if you're already following me on Buy Me a Coffee through rugbywithpads.com, you can see it there. We're doing a bit of a recap, maybe just highlighting some players who I think are interesting, or maybe I'm less hot going on into Sunday, but we'll also be taking a look at week 6. Unfortunately, as a family man, I have to take holiday occasionally, and I'm going to be taking holiday next week, so you'll be without me. So this will serve as the week 6 show as well. So if you're looking for that content, come back and listen here. But let's kick it off with week 5. And a lot happened already. So Thursday night was crazy. Maybe not the game was crazy because, well, it was weird. I rewatched it, and I don't know how Chicago let them in, and I also don't know how Washington didn't come back. It was such a weird game. I'm still wrapping my head around it, but key performances from the likes of Justin Fields, who rallied and didn't throw much, but got enough touchdowns to make him very relevant and got enough yards on the floor as well. Cole Kmet was there, and of course, in PPR leagues, all of you will be thinking about DJ Moore. If you sat him, I think 40% of people in most leagues sat him. I wasn't one of those people. It was a desperation start. I did sit Justin Fields in one place, which was really annoying. But that's the curse of having 10 leagues. You make decisions and hedge them based on the position you're in. Crazy game. 51 points in most PPR settings. I had 53 in my Dynasty League. Set me up pretty nicely on some falls. And on the other side of the ball as well, Sam Howell delivering 29 points, I think, in most systems, maybe 27, but still above expected. And I don't know how he did it because he didn't look good. I don't think anyone really looked good except DJ Moore with 230 yards or whatever it was. But crazy game, and probably not something I predicted. But I did predict that Sam Howell will have a good game. So we can start off this week with a big positive. And you know what? I'm not going to bury the lead. I'm going to go through the players that I think we're going to be great. And this week, the theme was going to be late bloomers and early dropouts. And I'm going to see if I can stick by them or not. And I retain the right for new information to change these things as well, because there was obviously some huge news in the running back world. I know all the fantasy heads will be cooing over this as I speak, but Jonathan Taylor redesignated into the team. If you follow on Sleeper, you would have seen him come off the pup, be healthy, then be questionable, and everyone panics, and then he's healthy again. I think there might have been a glitch in the system, but overall, that $42 million over a 3-year extension, 26, I think, guaranteed, which is, pay top of the market. I think Indianapolis Colts realised they'd have to cave. Zach Moss's play, although I think he ran for like 270 yards over the last, or maybe 280 yards over the last 3 games or something like that. His efficiency was really low. I think it was less than 3 yards a carry, but he just got so much volume because that's what they are. They're going to be like a more evolved version of what the Baltimore Ravens were once upon a time, where they were just running the ball and playing smash mouth football. I really like it, and I think now you've got Anthony Richardson there as well. They've got a dynamic duo there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. So I had originally Jonathan Taylor in my not column. I'm just going to remove him from consideration because I'm hoping he's going to be good, and I want to root for him. I don't want to root for him. I don't want to root for him being bad. I think it's a nice story to see a running back get paid. It's a position that I really like watching. So let's hope that is going to be the case. But let's go through our list, and we had an extended list, and because I didn't think I was going to make this episode, or I'm not making this episode on time, I wanted to give more people to consider, and we're getting to, I think some people call it the quarter pole of the season. We're not quite a quarter of the way through. It's a bit of a weird one. We've got 18 weeks now, but fancy talk. we're nearly a third in, and this, in terms of regular season work, with most people going to week 4 or week 14 or 15. So I wanted to talk about players who I think are coming up and breaking out, and I think we know a bit more every week. We know a little bit more, and that's what this whole theming is about. But late bloomers, I'll start from the top. We've already said Sam Howell, I think, was going to have a great game, and he has. I think he's proven that. I think he has proven also in real world football terms that he is better than the Commanders. The Commanders' defense let them down. I don't think their offense did too badly, although Joey Sly missing a 40 something a field goal really didn't set them up for success when they were 10 points behind. But regardless, Sam Howell is exciting. He is going to be not quite Jameis Winston-y, but if you had Jameis Winston back when he was Jameis Winston throwing 30 and 30, you were so happy because an interception only gives you -1 or 2. But the amount of yards and the amount of TDs he threw, wow, that's really what you want. And Sam Howell is going to take risks, and he will end up with games where he gets 3-4 points. I see that on his list of outcomes, but he is the ultimate boom bust. Don't rely on his floor, but you can rely on the fact that he's going to be throwing to 2 very talented wide receivers. And a really interesting backfield. For fantasy, it's horrible because you've got Antonio Gibson, sorry, and Brian Robinson fighting for those number 1 reps, but they're both good. Brian Robinson being the pure runner, Antonio Gibson getting the occasional mismatch, and even Logan Thomas crimping out. So Sam Howell benefits from having a decent enough O-line. He benefits from having really good weapons. And I think we're finally seeing that he's going to be here to stay, and he's someone that Riverboat Ron is going to hitch his wagon to. Devon A.K.A, I think it speaks for itself. He has broken out. I called it before the season. He was a big my guy. I look at Mostert, I look at Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson obviously hurt at the moment, and the rest of the bums on the roster. Raheem Mostert is not a bum, don't get me wrong, but he is not young anymore. He's 31. He's going to get bruised. He's going to get battered. And that's what I thought. Yes, why I thought Devon A.K.A, he's going to come at mid-season and absolutely do it. He's done it earlier than I thought he would. He's done it for 2 games. I don't think this is sustainable yet, but I still think it's going to be good. And this week, going up against a New York defense, which is pitiful at home, I think they're going to run up the score, and Devon A.K.A and Raheem Mostert are going to get a go. But A.K.A.'s the one you want long-term play. I think he's going to have it all. Another young player who is breaking out late, and I had very heavily on my books as a my guy early on, was Gabe Davis. Now, his numbers haven't jumped out off the page, and they're going to play in the early game this Sunday. And you know what? I joke every Thursday, and there might be a little Easter egg for your next Thursday when I'm away, to put your Thursday night players in your flex. But you've got to be aware that there is a 2:30 UK time game. If you're on the West Coast and listening to this, that's 6:30 in the morning. Set your alarm clock. Um, Actually, I think this episode will come out after that for you guys. No, it won't. No, I'm gonna set it to come out, in the middle of the night for you guys. But if you're on the East Coast, that's 9:30. If you're in the UK, that's 2:30. You've got to get it done. But Gabe Davis, I think, has every opportunity to have a fantastic game this week. Jacksonville have an okay cornerback room, and the reason I wanted them in here, I wanted the Bills player in here, is because I watched the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. All I got was a nasty illness and a headache the next day from the game. Thoroughly enjoyed the game, by the way. If you get a chance, go to Wembley. I will do a mini wrap-up vlog of this at some point. I've got enough content to do that, but wait a couple of weeks until I get a little bit better. And by the way, for the foreseeable future, this will only be audio only. If you know me, you'll know why, but let's put it that way. Not that I was a looker on camera in the first place, but I wanted someone in this game because I saw the Jacksonville defense for what it was, and I think it's talented at taking away 1 or 2 options. Now, at the moment, those 1 or 2 options are going to be the likes of, well, it's going to be Stefan Diggs and whoever the number two is, which I think a lot of people's mind is Dalton Kincaid. Is it Shakir? Is it? I can't remember his name now. I need to look at the depth chart, but it's not Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis, I think, is the three, which I think this means there's an opportunity for them. And so many weird and wonderful things happen in London. People are acclimatized differently. I think for the superstars, sometimes it's a bit of a culture shock. And I think Stefan Diggs is well known for being a bit of a diva in that respect. Gabe Davis, a bit more of a hard worker, and I think they're both going to have a good game. I don't think it's going to be Jacksonville's day in the sun at Tottenham, but I'm rooting for Gabe Davis, and I think this is going to be his late breakout. He's been needing it. He's been needing that big, multi-touchdown game or multi-target game. He's really not been targeted nearly enough to be relevant to most people or where most people drafted him. At the tight end position, I think there's going to be a bit of a late breakout for my man TJ Hawkinson. I was big on him off season again. Kirk Cousins just throws so much to Justin Jefferson. It's it's almost ridiculous. But I think they're going to need to turn their year around a little bit. And against Kansas City, who did prove that they are not invincible against the Jets. The Jets played well. Unfortunately, they didn't get it. And I don't think it was Zach Wilson's fault. I'm not going to pile on him there. But either way, the way I've been seeing this game going is it's going to be a bit of a shootout because you can pick apart the Minnesota defense on pretty regular basis. So they're going to be chasing the game, but they're going to the Kansas City defense, their secondary, again, they're very good at taking out one person. And although Justin Jefferson has, it feels like he's got a double me target on him at all times. He's so good in double coverage. I think Hawkinson will be the obvious choice. And Kevin O'Connell, not wanting to lose this game at home, I think that's going to be the key, is going to be looking at hyper-targeting TJ Hawkinson as a safety net on those screens and shorter routes rather than throwing away the ball, which is, in one-score games, that's what you don't want to risk. You don't want to risk having an interception. And TJ Hawkinson, I think, is the best option in the passing game not to get an interception. Safe pair of hands. And at your flex position here, in your kind of top five who's hot, I'm going to go with Romeo Doubs. And the reason was I wanted someone who's going up against Vegas. Vegas have a terrible defense. And Romeo Doubs, for me, has jumped out off the screen as being a reliable target who is going to be a PPR machine one day. I think it's proven that the running back room over there is not really working. Aaron Jones, having been a healthy scratch 2 weeks in a row, then comes in. We all think he's going to get the ball because he was almost ready to go the week before, didn't get it. And Romeo Doubs run the show. It was the cast of 1,000 no-name wide receivers, but I think Romeo Doubs is the one you want here. So I'm pinning him for a good game. And you know what? The reason I'm doing it, I'm looking at the game script side of things. Devontae Adam wants a piece of this. Jimmy Garoppolo coming back as well. It's a bit of a revenge game. It's got so much happening. I think it's going to be a relatively high-scoring affair, and Romeo Doubs is going to be a beneficiary of being that short slot guy that rookie QBs, even though Jordan Love isn't really a rookie QB, they love. There's a couple of other names on here who I added on the hot bench, and what I'll do is when I produce this for YouTube, I'll make sure to have the Instagram posts on the screen as well, and lovingly animate it so you can see it as we go through. But I'll quickly run through these guys. We've got CJ Stroud, late breakout. I think he's on target to be rookie of the year. He jumps out off the screen as well. I think he's good. Against Atlanta, it's a tough affair, but I don't think their secondary is as vaunted as it should be. Jesse Bates is good, but I think CJ Stroud is taking what the other team are giving him, and him and Nico Collins are going to be a matchup nightmare. Nico Collins is a 6'4" guy. He is potentially number one. I really like it. I did have Gibbs on here as well as a late breakout, but unfortunately I'm going to take him out of contention. He's doubtful for this week, so I'm going to scrap that and move on. Swift, I think he qualifies for a late breakout because they still, for the first 3 weeks, they couldn't work out who their team was. And I think Swift is definitely the running back one there. He has so much talent. I loved him. I loved him back in the day. I think he just got a bit of a bad rap at the end of Hard Knocks last year, and that followed him into the season. So that was a real shame. We've got Devontae Adams, who I've already mentioned. It's a bit of a revenge game for him. I like the narrative there. And finally, Breece Hall, which was great news. Finally not on a snap count. Now, these guys I don't think have such a range of outcomes as the first guys, who I think are going to be more positively inclined and maybe outreach their predicted. I mean, at the moment, for example, Gabe Davis predicted to get 8 PPR points. I think he's going to far exceed that. Sam Howell was predicted to get 15. He got 30. So that's what I'm playing for here. These guys, I think, are going to live up to expectations or potentially exceed them. So there's a good set of guys. But the guys I think you want to be targeting this week, if you can go back in time, go and get Howell. If you can go back in time, you should go and win the week 3 and 4 as well. But Howell, A.K.A, Gabe Davis, TJ Hawkinson and Romeo Dobbs. And then we've got on the bench who are kind of like, these are guys you want, but maybe not, hanging your hat on entirely. Stroud, Gibbs, Swift, Breece Hall, and, Breece Lightning, should I say, and Devontae Adams. Obviously, with every good player, there needs to be a bad one. And let's do the less bad ones first. We'll get down to the dirty stuff. But I've already mentioned that I had on my not list JT because I didn't know whether their team would have trust in him coming off pup, but they've just paid him 42 million, 14 million a year, which is top of the range for running backs at the moment. When you're seeing the likes of Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley getting like 10 or 11 million, you're seeing him, bust it open living. Not huge amounts. We're not talking Kamara and CMC money here, but we're talking good money. But JT is now off my list of early dropouts, as a contrast to early breakouts. But someone who, there's a couple of running backs on here that I do want to talk about, and we're talking about as a pair, Sanders and Mattison. Sanders, I think, came out of the blocks, and I don't think he's got it in him to be the number one. He was so effective in that Eagles system because he didn't have to be everything. Boston Scott could come in for a few plays. Kenneth Gainwell could be that third down relief. But now he's everything to that team. I don't think it works for him. I think he's going to get tired. And it's going to be so much reliance. It's a terrible O-line. I'm just not seeing it for Sanders. And although he's had a couple of spike games based on volume, I don't think he's going to be reliable, and I think he's going to get hurt. I think he was questionable coming into this week even. So, I would be looking... He's a trade away candidate. And you know what? In a couple of weeks, we'll do a trade episode to reignite your team as well. So, he's on that list for sure. And then we have Alexander Mattison as my other running back on this list. Now, I really liked Mattison a few years ago, and I think he was he was a brilliant handcuff. He was possibly the best handcuff because you knew you would get effectively equivalent performance from him than you would Dalvin Cook when he came in relief. He's not built to be the volume guy though. He is not a slight man, but he takes contact differently than Dalvin Cook ever did. And I think that means he's not going to be as reliable moving forward because there is a level of preservation, and he's the only guy who can do it on that team. There's the likes of Dwayne McBride and Cam Akers they've got there now, but I haven't seen Cam Akers play. Not sure whether we will. Maybe he's got a better relationship with him, but all of these as well. The reason they brought in Cam Akers, I think, is, and I think did they pay a fifth for him, or was it a pick swap? It might have been nothing, to be fair. But either way, I think it's because of longevity and reliability of Mattison long term. And are they going to have to change something around? I think they possibly are. They're 1-3 at the moment. Yeah, I'm not liking Mattison's future on the fancy football lineups out there. It's just not speaking to me as being something that I really want to bet the house on. I think Cortland Sutton is a drop as well. And again, I'd speak at trade candidates. The Broncos are bad. They're bad. And what I saw from Sutton over a couple of weeks where he scored big points were there were splash plays in games that they're behind, or it was against the Bears. But still, I saw so many highlights of him with soap for hands, and that's not what you want. I feel like I'm speaking a lot more about badly about people than I did about good players here. But yeah, Sutton, I got rid of him in Dynasty, and the guy who picked him up doesn't let me forget the fact that he picked him up for next to nothing. But I think he's going to rue the day though, because I swear he's a cursed player in fantasy. Um, I had a team name after him a couple of years ago, and that team burnt to the ground. So, you know what, Cortland Sutton, I like you as a player. I just don't think you're in the right position, and I don't think the Broncos are going to get any better than we've seen. I think they might end up getting worse, and I think with Jerry Jeudy working in, I think we might see some different stuff. They've got rid of Randy Gregory later, so I think they're going to be earlier this week, so they're going to be chasing games more. Although maybe he didn't impact the defense quite as much, so it's a difficult one for me to sell to me. So these are guys who are marginal, but I think are going to be lower than they're expected. You might want to trade away or trade if they've had a high week. And finally, on this kind of not quite the worst list, but we're going down Darren Waller. Tight end's a naff position. Let's put it out there. Outside of Kelsey, outside of currently Sam Laporta and Mark Andrews, do you want anyone? I'd rather not play the position. I'd rather play a full flex. It's such a difficult position to sell because nobody in that position has any level of consistency. Even Kelsey has off weeks as well. His off week's like 12 points, which I'll take. It's just difficult for the experience of a tight end owner, and for me, who gave up a decent amount of draft capital for Waller in a couple of different places. It's good to have someone you can hang a team name on. I ain't no Waller back girl. I wanted him to do well. I just think it's the Giants are bad. And it's not just the Giants. The O-line's okay. Danny Dimes is bad. When they don't have Saquon, they don't have an answer, and it's so one-dimensional. I think that's why they did well last year, because they could rely on Danny Dimes running the RPOs, all that fun stuff. They don't have that this year, and even though Darren Waller is definitely the most talented pass catcher, he's just getting lost in the sauce with 1,000 slot receivers out there. It's really difficult for me to buy into that experience. So yeah, not a great set. But let's go to the guys who I think, and these are the bigger names that I'm drawing a blank on, and I'm thinking, I want nothing to do with you guys. And again, one of them I wanted on this list because I wanted to talk about what I saw. And Trevor Lawrence, statistically, last week didn't have a bad game against Falcons, but he should be so much better. And again, for the draft capital you had him for, you can still trade away him on name value. He was a fifth or sixth round pick for many. Everyone thought he was kind of in that, breaking out into that top tier. Well above the rest of the guys, probably above Dak as well because of his youth. He looked average. He's not the next. And this is probably me saying big stuff, but it's very difficult to be the next Andrew Luck. Maybe this is something I should clip for social, but I don't think he's the generational talent in this system than we thought he was. Doug Peterson is a great coach, no doubt, and he did well with the Eagles, impactful, great coaching. Can he take him to the next level? I don't know. And I think the problem is he's playing too safe. And when he was playing in college, he would make these amazing, dangerous throws, and that's what everyone is. And he was so accurate. He's still so accurate, but he's playing in on himself. And unfortunately, I think the cast of characters around him aren't doing him any favours. Christian Kirk is fine. Calvin Ridley, maybe he's got a bit of rust on him. He was lucky to get a touchdown last weekend, but Travis Etienne, I don't think is that great. Tank Bigsby isn't doing much. Evan Ingram is a great outlet, and I really like him for fantasy at the very least. But Trevor Lawrence, I think he's just not quite as good as we want him to be. And it's a significant enough name that I thought it warranted making on this list. Elsewhere, at running back position, we've got Najee Harris. Do I need to say more than Matt Canada's offense? It's so bad. The offensive line plays badly coached. The wide receiver plays bad. I think they missed Deontay Johnson. Pat Frymouth, I think he was injured one week, but either way, hasn't really shown what he should be. Darnell Washington hasn't been the seventh lineman we needed to open up the run game. And Najee Harris is splitting reps nearly 50-50 with Jalen Warren. Get out. Just get out. I think the experiment is over. Enough said there. This is one I think is more a temporary one, but at wide receiver here, I've got Chris Olave. And it's more because I don't think the Saints offense is very good. Kamara last week was 13 for 39. And you think, oh, that's not bad. 3 yards to play, running, that's great. That was catching. He scored like 17 points on 39 yards. It was awful. And all of those catches went away from Chris Olave. The volume isn't there. The talent at quarterback isn't there. The O-line is weird. I think the maximum number of points they've scored, it was weird. It was 26, but they've scored like 9 points. They couldn't get a touchdown against, was it Arrow? I don't know who it was against. But either way, yeah, there's multiple times when they haven't been able to get a touchdown going. Quarterbacks, I don't think Derek Carr is a considerable upgrade against Andy Dalton, despite me gushing over him a couple of weeks ago. But I think that shoulder injury is going to be bad, because shoulder injuries in older quarterbacks doesn't speak very well. But yeah, Olave is someone that I'm avoiding, mainly because of the situation, not because I think he's very talented, because I think he is incredibly talented. And someone who I think else is incredibly talented, but just maybe not in the right way to play at this level and not in the right system, and it's too much hype around him, is someone else who I saw last week, Kyle Pitts. Number 8 is imposing. He's physical. He's everything you want him to be, except he's not Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith ran the game from the tight end position, outscored him, looked better, maybe was more open, didn't drop catches. Kyle Pitts is now the number 2 for me, and he can't block, so he's going to be on the field less. I just don't get it. There's such high draft capital. I don't think Arthur Smith is coaching particularly well this year. And outside of Bijan Robinson, they don't have an answer. When Bijan Robinson gets his hands on the ball, the Falcons are great. When anyone else has got it in their hands, less so. And finally, in my flex, it's someone that I flipped and flopped, I think, in episode as well, over in the preseason and during the draft process, is Ramondre Stevenson. Ramondre Stevenson currently is being outperformed by Zeke Elliott, and they're both doing crap. And that might be the first semi-swear word that I've had on the pod so far that I've let loose, but I'm just going to let it go, because I just think he's rubbish. And it's, no, you know what, that's not true. I don't think he's rubbish. I think the situation for him is incredibly bad. Mac Jones is a shadow of his former self, and when I say former self, his rookie self. The offense is going nowhere. They've got the toughest schedule out there. I think the next 2 games, they've got the Saints and someone else. Are probably the softest part of the schedule, but it's not looking pretty. And I think, who are they taking on this week? You got the Saints this week, and next week, this is a soft part of the schedule, so maybe it's a case of you might get a bit more of a plus this week, and next week they've got Vegas. You might get a bit of a plus this week, and then it falls off, but I'd be selling now if I were you, and I don't expect him to have a good week anyway this week against the Saints, who... Well, I think for the running game to work, you need the passing game to work. For the passing game to work, you need the running game to work. Both at the moment, Bill Belichick can't get either working, and I think Ramondre Stevenson and his very high draft capital in the second or third round, late second, early third, has suffered because of that. Now, let's quickly wrap that up. So, from the hot side in week 5, I've always said you go with Howell, go back in time, go get him. A.K.A, Gabe Davis, Hawkinson, and Dobbs are going to be my star players to go after. Elsewhere, I think Stroud, Swift, Breece Hall, and Devontae Adams. You know what? I'm allowed one superstar occasionally. I think Devontae Adams, and I think I like kind of betting on that one and putting it in here because of the should I say quoi. The storyline behind it, the revenge game narrative. And on my not list, this is I should call it a naughty and nice list. Maybe I'll make this Santa. Oh, you know what? That is a great idea for a t-shirt. Fancy, naughty or nice. Maybe we'll be seeing that soon. By the way, if you're interested in a t-shirt, we have. The season doesn't start till October. Unlimited edition, long sleeve t-shirt. It's a really nice tee. I'm going to be showing it off in the next couple of weeks on socials as well. I will be putting it out there and probably until Thanksgiving. So yeah, which is sometime in November for our American and UK listeners. Anyway, for those who are on the less hot list, the not quite so hot, guys who I think are going to be underperforming: Darren Waller, Sanders, Mattison, and Sutton, and the guys who I think you should run a mile from: Trevor Lawrence, Najee Harris, Chris Olave, Kyle Pitts, and Ramondre Stevenson. I am hanging it out there this week. That is, I've taken away 2 of them. So that is 18 names for you to judge me on. And you know what? We haven't done badly so far this year, We're at a 63% win rate on our predictions. It's always going to be more difficult early on, and we don't make it easy for ourselves. We don't allow a huge amount of superstars. So, after this week, with 18 there, and incoming another 10 in a moment, we'll have to see where we land. I think, you can be relatively comfortable with the process that we go through here on Rugby with Pads. And that's what I wanted to talk about and segue really neatly into week 6. By the way, I'm doing this as a whole one. I'm not feeling great, so I'm trying to get this all done in one take. So apologies if I haven't put any breaks in here in post. But week 6, I'm doing this ahead of schedule. So I'm recording this on a Saturday before the games start, before week 5 has even really got into gear. We've only had the Thursday night game, which is of course that almost instant trashic. Is that like a trash classic? Yeah. But what I wanted to do is tell you the process of a few players and why I go through this. So the idea is that moving forward, you can make more informed decisions. Because it's in the future, I wanted to break it down in a way that's just focusing on 5 players on each side of the fence, and we'll go through quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and we'll have a flex play as well. And I'll kind of explain why. We might have some familiar names here, but these are the kind of thoughts I go in, and I try and plan it a couple of weeks ahead, and then I edit it, a bit closer. But what I want to do is make you guys more fantasy aware and more analytical. More trend aware and better fantasy football players if you can be, because giving some thought behind this rather than just running the numbers, it's what takes you from making the playoffs to making a championship. And that's what we want to do here at Rugby with Pads for our listeners. Unless, of course, you're playing against me, then I want to win. So let's... how do we want to go this? Do you want to go QB first? Let's go QB first. And I'm going to take you through my thought process for this particular game. So we are going to start with 2 players. We're going to be taking a look at Fields and Burrow. Fields on my hot list, Burrow on my not list. Now, Justin Fields, all the hype is around him, and that's what we really like. But the process I go through is, for a QB, I look at who they're playing and how they're playing. Now, Minnesota, we know the headline figure, and they'll be playing at home on Sunday afternoon, I think, against Minnesota. It's an NFC North game, which means I think it's going to be higher stakes. I think it's closer than everyone thinks. So I do buy into that narrative of those rivalries as well. But Minnesota stay close in games. That's it. No matter who they play, they stay close in games. They don't get boat raced often because they have such a potent offense. And when we see that, we see close games with this at the same time with Chicago. So I think even though we all think, you can beat up on Minnesota because they've got a rubbish defense, they have, but they've got a really potent offense, which means I think it's going to be an absolute cookout. It's going to be both teams slinging the rock and Justin Fields doing what he needs to on the ground. I think he's going to need to run for 150 yards to make it relevant, because his only outlet is DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. And I think what they've done last week is simplify the offense. They said, okay, your first read is DJ Moore. Your second read and your outlet is Cole Kmet. If you don't have that, you've got to check down to the running back. If you don't have that, run. Simple. You have you're almost like 2 decisions to make. Is DJ Moore available? No. Is Cole Kmet available? No. It's either run or running back. and that's all you need. And I like that. I think that for Justin Fields will breed success, and I think that will breed success against a Minnesota defense who aren't cracked up to anything. And the opportunity to score a lot of points in a high scoring game and potentially go into overtime says to me, get Fields, get Fields, get Fields. Minnesota aren't winning the turnover battle. I think Justin Fields in a simpler offensive scheme is going to get better. We'll have to see how that plays out. And on my not list, similar reasons. I'm looking at Joe Burrow and how he's playing. Now, Joe Burrow, fourth round quarterback, fancy fourth round. Obviously, he was the first pick in his year. People want him to do well, and people are forcing him, but he is injured. This calf injury has limited him massively. His average yards per attempt has gone down a huge amount. Last year, he was 50-50 on balls or on targets over 20 yards. And I think over the course of the year, he'd done like 50, 60, I think it was 56 was the number. I was reading it earlier. 56 long balls hit in stride over 20 yards, 50% hit rate. That's great. That's what you want your quarterback to do. Go long when you can do. So far through 4 games, he's attempted 4. He's hit 1. That's bad. You know there's something wrong there. And when you've got Jamar Chase saying, I'm open, I'm open, I'm open, that's going to really struggle. And what you're doing is you're going up against a tough secondary in Seattle. Seattle are physical. The Legion of Boom is potentially back. It's what Pete Carroll wanted to make 10 years on. I think, is Bobby Wagner still there? Bobby Wagner's still on there. But yeah, with Jamal Adams potentially coming back as well, I think that's going to speak about it. And Cincinnati have a poor offensive line, which means Joe Burrow, despite Seattle not having the best pass rush in the world, he's not going to get as much time in the pocket, which means he's not going to be able to throw it long, which means he's going to potentially throw it short, which isn't what you want for a yardage guy. As a quarterback, you want yardage. I know how it comes. He's not going to get pick up on the ground. So he has to pick up in the air, and by throwing it short, it's not going to happen. I think he's going to have to just take what the defence give him, and Seattle will keep it in front of them because they know they've got some absolute ballers in the secondary. They've got a very nice secondary. So, yeah, that's why I'm putting Joe Burrow in my not so hot list there. At running back, okay, we'll open up the kimono and go through the process. James Cook. Now, James Cook was an interesting one to put in here. Buffalo, who are they going up against? I think they're at home in week 6. I'm just going to, cast my eye. Oh, yeah. They're at home against local rivals, the New York Giants. I've already talked this episode about how bad I think the New York Giants is, and that extends to their defense as well as their torrid offense. They can't build pressure. Kayvon Thibodeau is not what he pretends to be. He's a crypto guy, which I think says enough about him as a person. But as a player, I don't think he's all that's cracked up to be, and he's not the pass rusher that they need him to be as well. I think they're going to run up the score enough and let James Cook do his thing. They're coming back on it's a longish week, but they're having to travel transatlantic. They're going London to East Coast, but either way that takes them out of them. And they're another team that has chosen not to take a bye coming back from London as well, which is an interesting thing because the Falcons haven't in week 6, which is why as well I think the Falcons are going to get picked on this week. So that's something to consider as well. But regardless, I think what's going to happen is Buffalo are going to get the ball into the hands of their running backs. Latavius Murray isn't much to worry about. It's going to be James Cook. It's a James Cook game. That's why I like that, and that's the logic I've got going into week 5 for week 6 anyway. The other side of the coin, I've put the whole of the Denver running back room, and I put that because I don't know who it is yet, and that scares me enough. Is it Javonte Williams? Is it Samaje Perine? Is it McLaughlin? I didn't pick him up on waivers because I thought it was too much hype there, and I've already talked about how bad I think the Broncos are at the moment in this episode. where are they going to? Why isn't it not jumping out over here? They're on Thursday night against Kansas City. Kansas City are going to run up the score in an AFC West game that they are going to be targeting, and they are going to be schooling up something really clever to win. And I think Andy Reid, as part of the brotherhood of coaches, is going to want to teach Sean Payton a bit of a lesson, because you don't go saying that about other people, even if you don't agree with how Daniel Hackett handles his business and how he handled it. You don't call out the coach like that. So I think it's almost personal for the brotherhood of coaches to put one down on Sean Payton. And you know what? I think Andy Reid will be really targeting these games, because they don't have as much depth in their team to win the outside of division games. That's why I think they're going to boat race them a little bit and limit them. You don't want to be going up against Chris Jones down the middle as well. That's a big factor for me. So with a committee of running backs, plus the fact I don't think the game script is going to go their way, that is why I don't like any of the Denver running backs. Plus, it's Thursday night football. Weird stuff happens on Thursday nights, man. Yeah, just going to take a sidestep, but every time I kind of go and look at because I'm not going to watch it. I'm sorry, like, I've got two kids. It's very difficult to watch primetime, quote unquote, games in the NFL on Thursday and Monday and Sunday nights. But whenever these island games happen, where it's the only game on and everyone's eyes on them, they're just naff. And I think it was Amazon last year. They had all of the Thursday night games, and I think they had such a poor outcome. I think it was like 40% lower scores than the rest of the league combined, the average for the rest of the games. So they were definitely on the very much low side of everything, and you weren't highlighting excitement. And again, the scheduling, I get it pre-season, but I think this is why maybe we need to take a break after week 5 and reevaluate and said, who are we going to put on TV who's actually going to be good? Because Denver, Kansas City does not speak like a good game to me. And looking at the slate of week 6 games, I'd much rather see San Francisco, Cleveland in a highlighted game. Hell, I'd rather see Arizona and Los Angeles Rams, Cardinals Rams. I think that could be a really, really interesting game. Anyway, beside the point. On the good side of running backs, James Cook. Bad side, the Denver running backs. Wide receiver, I'm going to give myself. Well, you know what? Bear with me. DeAndre Hopkins is a legend of the game. He is a superstar in his own right. He's not a superstar anymore, because in that offense, he's just not the number one. It's not Nick Westbrook-Akina either, before you say that. It's not Chio Okonkwo. It is Derrick Henry still. They're going to run him into the ground. And although I like Ty Spears, I think he outsnapped him a couple of weeks ago. Derrick Henry comes back, as I said he would, and runs a show. 27 points. Against Baltimore, it's going to be a dirty game. And I think Baltimore have a pretty good secondary. But for all these reasons and more, I like DeAndre Hopkins this week. So I've told you why I don't like it, but I like him this week because the Baltimore Ravens are going to plan, and they're going to have to plan and stack the box against Derrick Henry. And I don't think it's going to be a very good Derrick Henry game in week 6 because of that. But because of that, when you stack the box, and I'm still learning a bit more about defensive schemes, etc. But so I'm just distilling a bit of information, and this is my thought process. It's going to be a mismatch. And who is better at creating separation than DeAndre Hopkins? And you have started to see a sliver of a relationship happening between Ryan Tannehill, who is serviceable, and DeAndre Hopkins. And I don't think he's going to get a huge amount of opportunities, but when he does, he's going to have so much separation. He is going to get those big, big catches, and that's what we want. And that's why we like DeAndre Hopkins going into week 6. On the other side, I've already said this is a game I'd love to see live in kind of prime time. But Rams versus Cardinals, two names at start of the season I wouldn't have thought, even though I'm a Rams fan myself. And a name that I never thought I'd talk about, but Tutu Atwell has been very fantasy relevant. He's been a very good wide receiver 2/3, but I don't like him for this. This week is Cooper Kupp's first game back. I think a lot of people are going to clamour to go get him. I think it's still Puka Nakua's offense, and I think they're going to bring in Cup gently, and he's going to have a few games drawn up for him because McVay is that guy who wants to flex how much smarter he is than everyone, which I love because he's incredibly smart. He's probably thinking in 4D chess. But either way, it's going to be interesting. I think 2-2 is all going to be good this week, but next week, I think 2-2 is going to suffer from the fact that it's going to be, all right, okay, well, we've seen Cooper Cup is still alive. He's still got legs, etc. Now let's bring him in and absolutely embarrass the Cardinals because just like the Rams, just like I mentioned about Andy Reid earlier, about targeting their in-division games because they might not have the depth, that's exactly what the Rams need to do to stand a chance of being relevant this year. And against the Cardinals, who are spicier than they should be. Yeah, they're good. Jonathan Gannon has got them playing for something. I don't know what, but yeah, either way, I think 2-2, what's going to happen to him is he's just going to go down the pecking order. He's still that gadget guy, but you've got 3 gadget guys. You've got Puka Nakua being able to do screens and slot play work, and you've got some incredible guys who can all do various things. But I think what it comes down to is, if I think about the really successful Sean McVay offenses, the 2 guys I think of are Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and that dynamic duo between them. There's always the odd man out, and before it was Brandon Cooks. Even though Brandon Cooks was almost a perennial 1,000-yard receiver, he was always the odd man out. And I think what we have here in this new look wide receiver room, Tutu Atwell might be the odd one out. I think already at the moment, Van Jefferson is the odd man out. He was everyone thought he was going to be the number 1. He's definitely the number 3 right now, and I think Tutu Atwell being the 2 is going to drop back down to the 3. And he's just going to get less opportunities moving forward from week 6. So again, he's one of those guys that I might be thinking about fading. And tight ends, I'm going to talk about 2 guys who are kind of at opposite ends at the moment, but let's talk about the guy who I think is going to have a good game, and it's going to be George Kittle. George Kittle, really? Yeah, he's the top 3 tight end that everyone drafted. Yeah, you all draft him there. He's not been playing that way, though, because he's such a great blocker. And what you've got here is a really interesting game where you're going up against a Browns defense who have a great pass rush. Great, yeah, we know that. And they've got a decent secondary, yeah. And I think they're going to struggle to get the run going because of that as well, because they've just got a good interior defensive line. So what they need to do is scheme up some weird stuff. And Kyle Shanahan, when he schemes up some weird stuff against person who I think is the most talented and naturally athletic football player in the entire of the NFL, and it's George Kittle. And just look at some of his kind of raw metrics. They're insane, and his football brain is incredible. I've got a lot of time for George Kittle, less so on fantasy, but I think this week, again, this week 6, we're talking against Cleveland. I think it's going to be his boom game, because he's going to be mismatched. Everyone's going to be looking at Brandon Ayuk at CMC, and then you've got Kittle having feigned falling over against Jadeveon Clowney or something like that, and then taking off for 40 yards. Those are the kind of plays that I think Kittle's going to have, and I think everyone's going to be lacking, because I think people aren't going to see him much this week, and then he's going to bounce back next week. And this is again, going through the thought process. And on the other side, I'm looking at Tyler Higbee. For all the same reasons I talked about earlier, the tight end position has never really got going under Sean McVay. Tyler Higbee's been ever present. Yes, he's been paid as well, but I think he's proven himself to be a veteran, a decent veteran safety valve. I don't think you need a safety valve against the Cardinals, and that's why I don't think it's going to be a Tyler Higbee game. I think it is going to be a let's piss all over them with the guys. Sorry, is that a second swear word today? I don't know if the P word counts there, but going to run all over them with the offensive weapons that they've got in the wide receiver ranks and the running back room. And this is where my flex positions are going to come in here. I'm going to talk about Kyron Williams. I think he's fantastic, and I know I've talked about 3 Rams players, but these are the first guys that came to mind when I go through this early process-driven exercise. But Kyron Williams, I think, is a fantastic little player. He's just a scheme fit, and I think they're going to want to have. They're going to have to balance the play a little bit more. Everyone's going to be looking at Phuket. Everyone's going to be looking at Cup. Kyron Williams can smash it down the middle, and he's very effective at getting in the end zone, and that's why I want him. I think there's going to be some end zone play against a defensive line, which is possibly the worst in football against Arizona. He's going to get in, and I think that's why I want him here for that touchdown upside. And finally, in our flex, not flex, you know what I mean. For the same reasons I don't like Ramondre Stevenson this week, I don't like him next week. I know he's against a weakened opponent, but he's just not. I'm just not seeing him getting the ball, and I think they're going to have focus on getting Mac, getting it out to receivers, and seeing what they've got in the receiver room and shaking that up. Ramondre Stevenson's just not going to be focused on, and I think that's going to be key there. So, week 6. At the moment, this is in a bubble. We're the Saturday before the week even starts, before week 5 even starts. But for week 6, my trust the process players here on the hot side: Fields, James Cook, DeAndre Hopkins, George Kittle, Kyron Williams, and on the not so, Burrow, any of the Denver running backs. So I'll give with big ask here for them, none of them to do well. Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, and Ramondre Stevenson. I hope you enjoyed this kind of episode, because it just got me thinking about, right, I just want to talk you guys for a little bit how we used to do. Less strained upon the content grind, and just mix up a little bit and talk you through my process as well, because I put a lot of thought into doing this show, and it's a very weird thing doing a podcast, because what you're doing is you're asking friends, relatives, strangers, whoever it is, to give up their time to listen to you. And what I wanted to do is give a bit of an insight into this part of the season. Rather than just be a grind of content, I'm just getting stuff out to you to push down your ears. I wanted to show you how, and to tell you why I do it, because I do this to help grow the game. And there's a lot of ways I try and do this, working with the likes of the fancy game day app guys. That's been really fun. I won't talk DFS this week because it's just too much on here. But if you're interested, hit me up, hit them up. It's a really cool, fun game. If you're obviously your capital is at risk, all of that fun stuff. It's not an investment as such. It's a fun pool betting game where they're not keeping a huge amount, and compared to a lot of your betting odds, I do think it is a fun way to spend your time, and it's a different way to root for your team. If you've only got one team, DFS is a great way of looking at other players. Anyway, sorry, I had a big long conversation with them a couple of weeks ago about growing fantasy football in the UK, because I went to Wembley last week, and 80,000 fanatical fans. Well, some fanatical, some less so. The guys who sit next to us in the bleachers. Yeah, I don't know why they're there, because they don't seem to enjoy it, and they always leave, basically halfway through the fourth quarter. Anyway, 80,000 minus 2 people watching love this game of the NFL. Love it when it comes. The tickets that went on sale for Tottenham went so quickly. It was incredible. I just want to be able to tap into a little bit of that audience and give a bit of insight to grow this portion of why I love football, because I think this part of fantasy football helps me grow my enjoyment for real football. It helps me think about things in different ways, look at things in different ways, and hopefully this week 6 trust the process segment gave you an idea on how I look at the game, and if that's interesting to you. Funny, I was speaking to a couple of guys last week. One of the guys who is recently joined one of my fantasy leagues, Mike, shout out, loves college football and has been watching the game for much longer than I have, and was really interested in development of players and like the storylines behind those. Some other guys that we were speaking to didn't really get the fancy idea, but as soon as we started speaking to them about why we look at it and why we watch Red Zone every week, it's like, oh well, Red Zone would be so much more exciting if I could root for more players than just the Bills who I support. There's so many different reasons to do this, and what I wanted to do is show what I've picked up from this. And if you're interested in that at all, hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to interview you on the pod. even if not for the pod, just talk to you about this kind of stuff, because this is what really gets me going. But I've gushed for too long. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can support, if you could support us in any way, that'd be fantastic. Like, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you're listening to this on, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or other. You can like us and find us on all of the social media. I'm probably most active on Instagram. It's easier, it's a visual medium, it just works with me. But I try and post a little bit on Twitter as well. Maybe I don't hit my meme game up, but you can find us at Rugby with Pads. And when I say us, it's mainly me. So you'll find me there. Occasionally, I enter some competitions. So sorry if some tweets are a bit, sorry, they're called X's now, or posts. I don't know what they're called. But yeah, they might not be quite as relevant to fancy football content, but it is there, hidden amongst the rubbish. If you want to support the pod more directly, you can do. There's two ways to do that. You can go to rugbywithpads.com each week for any members, and you can be a member for a minimum of £1 a week. £1 a month. Sorry, so you get 8 articles a month for £1. Go figure. You can support the pod that way. That helps keep the lights on. In terms of hosting fees, I don't do this for money, so I do this for the passion to grow this as well. But if you're interested in supporting in better ways, I have memberships that have merch as well. And you know what? I really like this merch. I partner with Gelato, who are a UK-based organisation who do print on demand all around the globe. We deliver globally as well, and through that I've been able to add some cool merch to some of those tiers as well. I've just updated the tiers so you can get some different merch as well, so go have a look at that there. They range from anything from, as I said, £1 to £15 if you want some extra content there as well, and you get loads and loads of merch there. And as a membership you get a drop every year as well, and you'll get your pick of an expanding roster as well. But if you just want the merch, and it's a bit less money than the membership as well, because you get a little bit you don't get the content with it as well. So we preview content occasionally, but we have some gated content just for members. But if you want to see any historical content, it's all on rugbywithpads.com. If you just want to buy the merch, store.rugbywithpads.com. That will take you straight to our Etsy. Give us your opinion. I'm going to be adding some more things in the not too distant future as well. But as I said, there is a limited October pumpkin themed one. Again, I'll pop it up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube now. But I really like this design. I'll wear it in a future pod as well, so you guys can see it. But let me know what you think, and I'd love to hear ideas for new designs as well. We've got the standard Rugby with the Pads logo as well, which I think is a classic. I think it looks nice, and if you wanted to wear that, it would be an honour for me. But we've also got a new one, a bit more of a graphic tee on for See You in the Virtual Gridiron, with some pixel art coming out of an old-fashioned CRT monitor as well, which again I really like. It indulges, if you want to indulge yourself and that kind of thing, you can do. Obviously I'm ranting a little bit, but if you do fancy supporting us anyway, I'd be so appreciative. I'd obviously get you a shout out on the pod, all of that fun stuff. But thank you all for listening to this. I know it's been a bit of a bumper episode. I will make sure there are warnings in the title that it's a longer one, that you can take in bites. Maybe I'll split it up into 2 as well, so you can more easily access it as well. But thank you so much for listening, and as always, I will see you on the virtual gridiron.